Welcome to the Ultimate Bloons TD6 strategy series, where I'm going to be showing you strategies for every single tower from the Dart Monkey to the Beast Handler and every single path in between. This will show you how to diversify your setup and get better, along with seeing some stats, tips and tricks, and all of the strategies for every single one of the towers. And although that the series is geared more towards Chimps mode, this will also show you a lot of tips and tricks that apply to the standard game and will allow you to win with a new style. Alright, it's time for the middle path of the Beast Handler. We have the T-Rex, which will have the T-Rex, and then in this video we're also including the Velociraptor too. So the Velociraptor is great with the early game and also very good for mid-game purists, specifically taking out ceramics. The T-Rex is very good with mid-game damage and a late-game carry. And going into some of the stats, the Velociraptor has pretty darn good stats. It can take out Bloons very well. It doesn't really take out like leaking pinks and like yellows, like random stuff like that. You can move it around, so it does, but it's more so against like ceramics. And the T-Rex is kind of like that too. It takes out ceramics a lot better, not so much like the random leaking stuff, but it has a very cool ability that will stomp and stun everything and take down a good amount of stuff. So the degrees that you want, we're going to put Adasaurus in here too, because Adasaurus is actually really cracked in the early game. Adasaurus degree 6 is extremely strong. Velociraptor, you either want degree 17 or 24. 17 is when it can insta-kill ceramics, which is really good. You could spend a little bit more and ramp it up to degree 24 to increase its strength by a fair amount. Not really necessary though, but it's nice and I like to do it. Then the T-Rex is degree 64. It's just really strong as T-Rex. I forgot to put footage of the T-Rex in here, like I didn't record it in the first place, so yeah, I guess you get a degree 64 T-Rex. Now, one important thing to note, just like the other Beast Handler with the Megalodon, you cannot just have a beast merged somewhere and you can micro the Adasaurus or whatever into it. You need to kind of link everything up from the original base beast. So if you want to do something like this and have map wide coverage, the original Beast Handler needs to be in like the middle of the map, and then everything will link directly to the range. For the buffs, you'd want to give the tier 4 overclock. The tier 3 and below shouldn't really get a buff, but with an overclock, a degree 64 T-Rex will go pretty insane, and you'll see some footage of that. And maps that it's good on, it's very finicky because it really depends a lot on micro, and you can make a lot of maps very good, like multi-lane maps good with T-Rex. It's just if you need to micro, and if you aren't microing, really single lane maps are best. I was very surprised how inconsistent when I wasn't doing micro. The middle path was on like even multi-lane maps that switch back, but just having something where everything's together in one place is good. So the pros is that it's amazing early game, extremely high pierce as ceramic destroyer. It's really useful for its ability. Its cons is that it requires a lot of micro for its best use, and it is very inconsistent in the mid game without the use of constant micro. And that also kind of puts into the point too, it's inconsistent when you're just trying to like grab leaking things. It's really best against specifically ceramics. So the objectives is going to be Adasaurus early game, Velociraptor in the early and mid game, and T-Rex in the mid game and late game. So let's get right into it. And I'll start off by talking about the micro. I was talking about micro a lot. If you saw the last video, you know that I record all of these videos on Twitch while watching Twitch streams, because it kind of just makes it very bearable. I don't really want to play like intermediate black borders and paying attention. I just find that super boring, so I just like watch a Twitch stream while doing it. With that consequence, I'm not really going to be doing a lot of micro. That's why I don't use Corvus. Also, another thing, I really wanted to use Pat here for some reason, so I decided to use Pat. Not really the greatest thing to do, but I guess I did it. So take a look at the Adasaurus in the early game. This thing's really strong. It can pop lead, so you can pop it down. It's going to be dealing a ton of damage to all the Bloons. We get it up to degree 64, and that's just going to be wrecking everything, so much so that I can start building the village and decide not to again. Then for round 40, I'm just gonna get this Bloon Jutsu and I'll Alec buff it, and with the Pat Roar, that thing's gonna go down. The Adasaurus also is great with dealing with Bloons. If you put it in a spot where you can micro around, you can micro that thing around and it will clean up the ceramics from inside of Moab like it's nothing. I'm gonna get this up to Velociraptor, and this will be doing great in the mid game. around like round 43 is when the Allosaurus will kind of fall off. On most of the time you get Velociraptor, and then you're going to be crushing the ceramics. And just some basic degrees on there. I'm also going to throw in some discounts to make it a lot cheaper. Discounts with these beast handlers are huge because you're going to want to try to get these big degrees, and it's very important to have that. So we're going to throw a whole bunch of these guys. We're going to get the T-Rex, and I'll talk a little bit more about this now. I did mention a lot of times when you're leaving it in only one spot, which I kind of do, like I put it just right there because I was going to go off. Also, I forgot completely about camo leads in this run, so make sure you have something to deal with that. But it just is way less consistent than I thought. Now, the only times I really used this guy was when I was doing crazy like challenges where you're just microing it all around. And when you can do that, you really can like fill in the consistency gap with constant micro. It's a bit tricky. I actually use a hotkey, and as you can see there, like the consistency was pretty bad. Like it nearly died on round 63 without it. There's one way to avoid that, which I didn't really mention. That's kind of putting it more towards the front. I'll show an example of that later when it comes to specifically dealing with ceramics. But yeah, without the constant micro, it's very tricky, and I use a hotkey to put it down. It's actually top arrow is the moving, specifically the Velociraptor or whatever is in the middle path. But for those who don't really like a lot of micro, you can still do it. It's just that you probably need to change up its role, and instead of using the T-Rex in the mid game, you can still use the Velociraptor probably fine in the mid game. You'd probably want to push it more towards like getting it in the 80s, because just relying on that to grab everything in the mid game without micro is not really the best idea. That means you can't really have fun using it. It's just that I'd recommend pushing it more towards the 80s and maybe get something else for the mid game instead, and you'd still have a pretty good way around it. Basically, I'd had this it cruised through the mid game fine-ish. It almost died on round 63. I also probably could be because Pat doesn't really synergize well with it at all, and then I finally get something that will synergize with Pat, which is this 250 turbocharge. We'll grab an Emperor on top to deal with DDTs, and now you can see the ability. I'm also overclocking this thing really strong too, and the ability, especially on the degree 64, is just really strong. Like it has a strong ability, and it comes by so quickly, so that's just something great. So if all that talk about the micro was turning you away from using this tower, it just has an awesome ability, and it's very useful. I'm going to grab a Bloon impact just in case something leaks through, and then we'll just keep overclocking this guy, just using the ability when needed. I have a whole bunch of abilities here. I grab a Sabo to deal with DDTs. In the late game, the Bloons that it's typically best against, it's mostly Moabs kind of at this point. Moabs, ceramics, BFBs. It doesn't really do a whole lot to ZOMGs. The one thing though is that its stun ability is insane against DDTs. So you can see all these DDTs are going by. That stun ability, the stomp, it completely just wrecks them, and if it doesn't completely take it out, it stalls them out a lot, which is very useful. Like round 99, not an issue with the stomp ability at all. Very strong ability against specifically DDTs. Everything else it's also pretty good at too. And then for round 98, I was kind of worried this would get a little far, so I decided to try to stall out one side a little bit, and we take it out just fine. So yeah, it's a very interesting tower. And there we go. At the end, I kind of showcase like what's microing a little bit, and as you can see there, stomp, those DDTs are gone. When it comes to round 100, it doesn't really do an impressive amount of damage. So middle of the round here, I just get a first strike and pop that open. So yeah, very interesting tower. It can be used a lot of ways. So yeah, if you want to use it, definitely check it out. Anyways, for a little cool thing that what helps against round 63 that I didn't really do because I didn't notice in time, is that if you put this guy in the middle, and I'm just showcasing here with a degree 24 Velociraptor, if you put him in the front, he's going to be able to take out the ceramics like it's nothing. In fact, he one-shots everything. That's because there's nothing in its way to pop it down a little bit, so you get like a whole mess of yellows and stuff, and then it kind of just leaks through, because then it's going to pierce cap and not hit the right things, and it's kind of annoying and all that. So if you move things up, and I guess that is part of the micro, but it's just a little bit. If you need it for round 63, then it's going to help a lot. If not, and you have like some other cleanup, or you're taking that other advice where you really want to do things lazy and get the degree 64 T-Rex in like kind of the early 80s, then you wouldn't even have to worry about that because you'd have something for the mid game, which is a very cool way of doing it. Now I'm going to be playing a little bit differently. We're going to be getting Churchill on high finance. I'm still going to be doing the same thing where I'm going to be getting a the T-Rex earlier, but I'm going to be going for perma spike at the end, so we'll have like some sort of cleanup, which is a good way of working around, because just some random thing that deadly spikes will be able to catch it, and then we'll be able to save up for perma spike and just have a really cool time. And then we'll be using the ability all over that kind of stalls things out, deals well. It worked well with unstable concoction, which is really nice, and perma spike will be able to grab everything else inside. Now, if you watched the previous episode, which was the Megalodon, I mentioned how the Megalodon, when it comes to the advanced micro, which I am not really showcasing in that video, if you want to check out like what that kind of looks like, you can see all the wacky challenges I did with it, but they differ greatly. So when it comes to Megalodon, as you would have known if you see that video, it's based on targeting. You target the thing in all sorts of ways, so it will hit straight lines, use its thrash up, and that's kind of like the way you'd really optimize its use with targeting. But instead, with the Velociraptor and the, I guess, Allosaurus, T-Rex, all of them too, it's with placement. You move it around to place it. It's a lot more simple, I guess. You don't really have to do targeting and like decide what it needs to go on. It just goes where the balloon is, and it's a lot of mashing the hotkey. It's kind of very annoying to do it if you don't have a hotkey binded to it, but it's just a lot, and it's endurance, and it's just everywhere, up there, over there, down there. You just move it around a lot, and it will make it viable on a lot of maps. But in general, I honestly find it kind of annoying sometimes. T-Rex definitely is a cool tower, and I'll use it here and there, but honestly, I will get a lot of it pretty easily, so I'll take like a good break. I'm not like I'll use this tower every single day, just maybe once here and there. I don't know how you feel about it, but you can put it down like kind of in an intersection and we'll do pretty well, especially this degree 64, as you can see. And then when we get it on round 63, in like kind of an earlier spot before Churchill can really mess things up. And I guess there in round 64 you saw a little example of moving the T-Rex around, although I could just use the ability and that would have destroyed it or bought the deadly spikes bit earlier. But anyways, we got that. I decided I'm going to be just going for permaspike, which is a pretty cool idea. A lot of things will work well with permaspike. It won't kill the stall, which is really nice, and Churchill does good damage too, so it should work out just fine. So I'm going to get that permaspike up, and we'll just have the T-Rex stomping as much as possible. It's a pretty good combination. Churchill actually takes out ZMGs really well, if you know, so we can have Churchill artillery barrage dealing with that, and then not the Orca, it's the T-Rex, not Orca. The T-Rex will be able to just break things down into like weak BFBs, Moabs, all of that, stomp it up, and whatever leaks through, which is going to be like a whole bunch of ceramics, maybe a few Moabs, the permaspike is going to tank. So it's pretty nice, pretty chill. I'm going to get a main Moab a bit later on in the game, so that's going to be working out well, and all of that. So yeah, it's a very cool tower, and why am I ending off on round 81? And that's because, also, if you watched the last Megalodon episode, this is the last episode I'm recording of the Strat series. Like right here, right now. I guess when a new tower gets released, they said they plan to release a new tower sometime later on this year, I think. So when the new tower releases, I'll make an episode on that. But as like the main bulk of the whole entire series, this is the last one. So in about 1 minute, we'll be done. I will make a few kind of bonus videos. That's like my top 5 favorite strategies, but it's not the whole thing, honestly. I've gotten super tired of editing these things so much. Like I don't like editing, so it's going to be very nice to not have to edit this kind of format where I have to get all this stuff and grab all of that. It's so annoying, and honestly I feel like the quality in some of them like really lacked off just because I didn't want to do it, and I'm like ugh, and I work through it like a zombie. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun though, I'd say, besides the editing, I guess, and it's helped out a lot of people. And if you found it very useful, that's cool. I guess there's still another episode, but I recorded that like 2 months ago. So oh my gosh, that's it. Last words, peace out, I guess. Cool.
Thanks for watching. If you want to help out the channel, you can check out these new videos.
Like and subscribe for more content, support the channel by becoming a member, and joining the Discord to chat with the community. Bye!